so there's a lot of things that I would like to cover today. A lot of things that I'm hoping you'll find very helpful. Just in general, in preparation for the upcoming test, in preparation for your project, all these things. So I don't know if I'll remember to do or if I'll have time to do everything, but a couple things I want to mention based on the homework that I just returned. Okay, first of all, well, let me take an example out of the piece that I'm asking you to score or thing. First of all, alto clef, viola. I know a lot of us are aware of this, but it seemed like from the homework that some are not quite paying attention, and that is, where is middle C? Yeah. Wherever the two thirds come together on the C clef, that's where middle C is. So for instance, middle C in the alto clef is on the middle staff line. Okay? So if I were to give, let's say, the piece that I've given you for your project, if I were to give the tenor line to the violas, then and the first three notes are G, A, and B below middle C, then I have to actually start them right here. Right? G, A, whatever the rhythm is, and B below middle C. Okay. It's okay, I've had a few questions on the project, but also on the homework. I think there are some people that were not paying attention and they put the line they wanted to give to the violas, they placed it in the wrong octave. Careful not to write in the wrong octave. Okay. I've had a few people already notating, like say they're giving the tenor line for this passage that I've had you score. I've seen it, they've notated an octave too high. Be careful. To get the precise octave register that's given there, if that's what you want to give the violas, then you got to calculate, is it above middle C, is it below middle C, where does it need to go? That's one thing I've noticed. Okay? Let's see. Another thing, on the homework that I returned, I noticed in some cases, some people actually moved one of the given lines. They moved it an octave up or they moved it an octave down rather than notating it right in the octave, the original octave it's supposed to be in, and then doubling it in addition to that. Remember, I'm trying to make a distinction between doubling and moving a line. Okay? So we need to be aware that we can't just write a line in a different octave. It needs to be performed at the original pitch level, at least in some instrument. It has to be playing it in the original pitch level. And then it can be doubled in addition to that original pitch level. It can be doubled in a different octave if you like. But you can't just take something from an original octave and shift it down or shift it up and give it to an instrument, and then no instrument is playing it at the given original octave. Does that make sense? Okay. So be careful about that. At a minimum, each line of the original must be played or heard in the original octave. Okay? All right. I don't know if I've ever said this. This might be common sense, but I'm going to say it also. Do not give the violins the bass line, ever. Have I ever said that? I don't know. But for violins, never ever give the bass line to a violin. Just don't even go there. It's not sensible. Not sensible. Okay? So violins never take the bass line. Not even second violins. No violins would ever take the bass line. I could see maybe in a rare case that the violas could be given the bass line. If you're not having any of the double basses or even the cellos play, if you're having them rest, maybe the viola can actually reach the bass line. It can't all the time, but that would even be a rare case. Violins never take the bass line. Okay, another thing that I want to point out is this. Let's say I want to give violin 2 I'm going to start giving the second violins a line from the piece that I have you scoring. Okay, so they're in treble clef, and I have one sharp in the key signature, and I have my time signature, and I'm giving the violin twos, I'm giving them the alto line of the original. So if you want to look at your piece and compare, so I would give them this, and then I give them this. And then I think I'm going to do something like this. And then I'm going to do something like this. And that's into the next measure. And see if I can, did I turn these things off today? Well, let's wait till this boots up. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So, I want you to take a look at the first measure of the piece I gave you to arrange for your first project. And I told you that I wanted to give the violin twos, I wanted to give them the alto line. What have I done incorrectly on the board? Okay, good. This is what I get quite a bit. You see how I started giving the violin twos the alto line, the D, D, C, D, and then what is this? Where is this beat coming from? Yeah, it's coming from the tenor line. Can I go ahead, can I make some match lines like that? No, absolutely not. You definitely don't want to do something like that. You want to stay away from that for your project. Stay away from that on all assignments, tests, quizzes, things like that, okay? If you assign an instrument a given line, you keep that line with that instrument until it comes to a rest, until it comes to, a cadence point, something like that. Then you can make some switches. But you can't be picking different lines and mixing lines and stuff like that with each other. Okay, here's another thing that I sometimes see that I want you to be careful about and avoid. Let's say that I'm giving, again, the violins, I'm giving them the alto line. So I've got this, and then I've got this, and I've got this, and I've got this, and I've got this. And I've got this, and I've got this. Okay, what do you think is wrong with that? This is supposed to be the alto line from the first measure. Yeah. Do you see how some of the notes from my alto line have actually been moved to different octaves? I've seen that in my experience too. You can't just willy-nilly just say, oh, well, I want to bring this note out, or I want to bring this beat out, or this doesn't fit in the range of this instrument. So I'm just going to, slap it up an octave or slap it down an octave to make it fit. You can't, if you're giving a line to an instrument, you need to stay within that octave that you're writing, and you can't have some notes be in different registers, some notes be in different octaves. And if you need to do that in order for something to reach a particular pitch, or it can't reach it, then maybe you shouldn't be assigning that line to that particular instrument in the first place, right? Okay. So just be careful about this kind of thing too. Okay. For your project, just like for this assignment, there were a few students, I guess, that weren't sure how to do the bar lines. But since this first project is all for scoring for strings, just the string section, the bar lines can be connected and drawn through every single staff because it's all strings. You don't have to, you know, I saw someone on the homework, I saw some people doing this. No, that's not necessary. Since it's all string instruments, you just draw them through every single staff. Yes?
Okay, so in the bass line, when there's the low D, like on the
Yep.
thing, what do you do with that? Do you
Okay.
just write it?
Yeah, I'm glad you're asking that because I was looking at that in preparation for this class and I was going to address that. Okay. What she's asking for is take a look, for instance, in measure 4 of the piece I gave you. Let me shrink it just a little bit. Okay, so, once this focus, okay. So here's measure 4. It's a really long measure. And the question becomes, well, if I'm having the double basses, what do I do when they have to come to that note? You see how that's too low? You're not supposed to, in fact, what is the lowest note for that you should notate for the double basses? The E, and that's a whole step or major second lower. Okay. So what I might do here, I might get just a little bit inventive, but nothing outlandish. What I would do is I would probably, if I have the double basses playing this D on beat 3, I would probably just have them play half note. So they can just hang on to the same D right here throughout the whole measure, that they don't have to go down an octave. It's the same note, right? It's not going to change the inversion of the chord. The cellos can go bong, bong, bong. They can do the octave if you have the cellos playing this line, which probably some cellos should be playing this line. But for the double basses, I would probably just give them a half note D right there, since they can't go down.
So that's the same in measure 9 also?
Yeah. Now, this one,
You could do like on the last line of the first one?
right here, I would probably give the double basses a quarter note.
Okay.
Make this higher D, I would make that a quarter note. This is the only tricky note. I think this poses an interesting question. What might we be able to do? What could you think of in order to get, if you're having the double basses playing right here? This might take some thought, and this is one of the things I wanted to cover with you. I can't really, I gotta make it so small in order to show you the previous measure. Here's a suggestion that I might have for this pitch right here. Okay. Rather than just giving the double bass, you don't want to like give the double basses this note and then eighth rest and then they come back in. That's kind of a cheap shot. It's kind of shoddy. What I might do is I might without destroying the part rating, without destroying the line too much, I might actually raise the D, the E, and the F sharp and the G. Those 1, 2, 3. Those 4 notes, I might actually write them up an octave for the double bass. But just those 4. So you can maintain that ascending line. And then now that there's a leap after that to a C, well, if you're up an octave on the G, they can just maybe leap down to the C. They'll be able to reach the rest. And we talked about what to do for this beat right here. So let's see if I can zoom in. Let me see if I can play that on the piano. So I can show you what I mean by that. I guess it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's leave it like right there. Okay. So this is maybe what I would do if you're having the double basses play this line. Okay. I might have them play the low F sharp, and then instead of, since they can't go down here, I would go. But the low F sharp, raise the next 4 notes an octave, G, F sharp, G, then go back to. Now, I know it's a little bit, it kind of gets into what I was just saying that you should not do, but I think that if you want the double basses to play this, or get this D pitch, and they can't reach it, I'd rather you maybe try not to destroy the part writing and try not to destroy the line, and just have you move like 1 pitch and jack it up an octave and then all of a sudden come back down. I think that's kind of That's kind of a poor way to do it. I mean, I would not do it like this. I would not do that, because that makes the line really jumpy, like low F sharp, high D, then low E. I wouldn't do that. I would just raise the D, the E, the F sharp, and the G. I'd raise those an octave. That's not going to change the inversion of any chord, because the double basses sound an octave lower than what they're written, right? And then I would come back to the original octave right here on that C. Can anyone else think of something else that they might want to try for that? Do you have to have, do you have to have the double basses playing at all in that measure? You could have just the cellos taking the bass line if you wanted, and the cellos can reach all that. But if you want the double basses to play throughout the piece, then we talked about an option that could maybe work. Okay? Yeah, that's probably what I would suggest. Any other questions or comments about this? I do realize that was one thing I definitely wanted to mention to you all. Okay. Time here. All right. Okay, another thing, I don't know if it's been said, but double basses should not really be given any line from the original except the given original bass line. In other words, don't assign, like for instance, don't give the basses, the tenor line. Don't give the basses the original soprano or the alto, right? Because if you do that, especially if you give the double basses the tenor line, they're going to sound an octave lower than written, and in many cases, then that's going to change the inversions of all harmonies. Yeah. Besides, hearing the tenor line down an octave is just going to make it sound really muddy and mushy. So the only thing that the double basses could ever be given would be the given bass line, the original bass line. Okay. Another thing that I noticed from the homework. Some cellos always need to be playing the bass line with the double basses. Okay? You can't, for instance, give the cellos just like the tenor line in measure 9, and that's all they have, and then the double basses have the bass line in measure 9. If you're going to give the cellos some of the tenor line, then you have to divide the cellos. Because at least half the cellos always need to be playing, at minimum. Some of the cellos always need to be playing the bass line with the double basses for clarity. And so you get the bass line at its original octave. Okay? I don't know if this makes a lot of sense just by saying it, but these are some of the things I noted on the homework. Okay. The next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to give you, well, you know what? Before I do that, let me actually write one more example on the board, and then I'm going to give you a little test review so that we can go over that in class. Let's say, and this is in regards to the test now, not regards to the project. We got 2 clarinets, and they're actually playing a 4-measure, real easy example that looks like this. Based on the notation, tell me exactly how many clarinets are playing in measure 1. Both of them. 2 clarinets. Clarinets 1 and 2, right? That's what this means. This means both. Okay. How about in the second measure? Exactly how many clarinets are playing? Both of them. How do you know? It's the opposing stems that give it away for sure. Yes. Yes. You see that there's up stems and there's down stems, so both clarinets would have, even if you didn't have this here at all, In measure 2, you'd have to say both clarinets are playing. Yeah. How about in measure 3? Exactly how many clarinets are playing? One. And which one? The first clarinet. And in the last measure, which clarinet is playing? The second one only. Yeah. There's different, these little symbols, some of these are like from French, some of them come from German. Basically, they just mean the same thing as, what we would say is like first one only, second one only. That's what that means. Okay. For the test, you will need to know, I'm not going to say which ones, so it's just best to know all of them. You'll need to know the open strings on the violin, the viola, the cello, and the double bass. You need to have that remembered. Because I will ask that in some way, shape, or form, or multiple times on the test. You need to know what the open strings are in those instruments. Also, transpositions. Remember we talked briefly about transpositions. We spent a couple class days on transpositions. Do you know, for instance, how the French horn transposes? Yeah, it sounds, you gotta make sure, it sounds a perfect pitch lower than written. Do you know, for instance, how like the clarinet in B flat and the clarinet in A transpose? I know I go over these ones, same ones with you in theory, but these ones are good to have, like the alto sax in E flat and the trumpet in B flat. There's about half a dozen of them, I think. Okay. You'll need to know that for the test. Okay, the next thing I'd like to do is actually give you a review. Now, we don't have to finish this whole thing here today. Some of this can be done in your own time in preparation for the test. And by the way, unless we get some strange cancellation, we do have a test next class. Wednesday. It'll be the first test of the semester. And this will give you an idea of some of the things I could ask, similar things that I could ask on the test. Okay, so at the top here, and I'll try to put some of my answers on the screen. Let's unfreeze that. Instruments of the orchestra. In the blanks given to the right, list the 4 principal sections or choirs of the orchestra in the correct order from top to bottom. Well, which one goes on the top? Woodwinds. Yeah, remember we're talking about the huge sections of the orchestra. The woodwinds are always listed on the top, and after them come the brass. And after that comes before the strings, there's one other section. Say it again. Percussion. Yeah. Percussion, and then finally the strings are on the bottom. Here's my copy that I can. Yeah. So, woodwinds, brass, percussion, strings. Those are your 4 principal or main sections or choirs of a full orchestra. Now, am I going to ask you, like, where do voices go if there's a choir, or where is the piano? I don't think I'm going to get that nitpicky on the test. Now, anything extra comes kind of in between percussion and strings. It kind of gets shoved in there. Like if you had a solo voice or a choir or a piano or anything like that, that gets put in between the percussion and the string section. Next item. In the space provided, list the following woodwind instruments in the proper order from top to bottom. So I've given you, I think, 8 woodwind instruments. Do we know how to list them in order of high pitch to low pitch, but keeping related instruments next to each other? So for instance, which one goes in the very top? Good, piccolo, and then the next would be flute. I'm trying to mentally cross the ones out we've already used in my mind. Then the one after that would be oboe, that's right. And after that?
English horn.
Yes. How do you know it's not, why is it not clarinet?
Because English horn is closely related.
Yes, because the English horn is more closely related to the oboe family. Okay? So English horn would come after oboe. Then after English horn would come what? Clarinet. And then after clarinet would be bass clarinet. And then after that, there's two more. Bassoon, and then finally the contrabassoon. Yeah. Does this make sense? Yeah, I mean, they're kind of arranged again according to their relative pitch. Obviously, piccolo, flute, that's going to be up there, and bassoon's down on the bottom. But any instrument that's related to or in the same family is going to be put next to them. Whether it's, and in this case, most of those auxiliary instruments like the English horn and the contrabassoon and the bass clarinet, they're all a little bit lower than the primary instrument in their family. Okay? All right, so we got that. Now, this I can just show you. We don't have to go through the whole thing right here. Notate the following melody in tenor clef on the staff provided. Include the key and meter signature. So all you need to know is just how to get it started. Where is, in other words, see how the first note in the bass clef is middle C? Do you know how to write a tenor clef? It centers around the fourth staff line from the bottom. And do you know that that is middle C now? As long as you can get started correctly, I think, after one or two measures, I think the rest will fall into place. But if you have questions about how to notate, draw the tenor clef, where it goes on the staff, where middle C is in relation to it, these things you need to ask now. What else do you have? Again, this test won't be long. It's not a long test. In fact, some of you might be able to finish it in 20 minutes. That's fine. That's fine. But I just don't, I want you paying attention. I don't want you making silly mistakes, I guess, is what I'm trying to help you with. Okay, let's take a look at this. I forget, the instructions for this are on the preceding page. This score right here, for string orchestra contains a number of notation errors. Circle any errors you find and notate the excerpt correctly in the space provided. Well, maybe we can do a lot of this like verbally or out loud. Who can note or spot one notation error that needs to be corrected or fixed?
The brackets connected to violin 2
Okay.
should be with the violin 1 and violin 2.
Yeah, very good. You see the leftmost bracket sitting out there? That third or extra thing out there is actually supposed to group violin 1 and violin 2 because those are the same type of instrument. We cannot group different instruments. So this bracket out here needs to be actually raised up. That's one notation error. Yes?
There's no quarter rests in any of the instruments that don't have a pickup.
Okay. Very good. There's no quarter rests in the violin 2's pickup measure, violas, cellos, or double bass's pickup measure. Right? You can't just leave it blank there. If the first violins have a quarter note pickup, well, and these aren't playing, the rest of these instruments aren't playing, well, at least they need a quarter rest. Right? Yeah.
In the second measure, or I guess the first full measure of viola, the half note needs to there needs to be there another rest, or it needs to be a dotted half note.
Okay, good. So the rhythm of the viola's notes right here is definitely incorrect for the meter. You see how there's supposed to be 4 beats in a measure, and I only count 1, and then there's a half note, that's 2, 3. Where's the other beat? Well, like she said, either you put a quarter rest here, which is going to look kind of funny with these ties. That's not going to work. So maybe the best thing to do would be to add dots to both of these notes. To fill out the rhythm of that measure for the violas. That's good. Yeah,
Need a quarter rest on the second or the first full measure of violin too.
yeah, so we need a quarter rest right here.
The bottom note on the violin too is not in line.
Very good, very good. You see the lowest note for the second violin here? That's out of range, that's an F. Yeah, that's an F.
Yeah.
What is the lowest note on the violin? G. That's right. So can any of the second violins play that bottom note?
No.
No, absolutely not. So that's too low. That's a good catch.
So don't you not need arco since it's just assumed that if it's not cut up?
Very good. Do I need arco here at the top for violin one? No, because bowing, that's the standard way to play. It's assumed that you're going to do it that way unless told otherwise. So this is superfluous. This is not even needed.
So, if they can't play the F, then do you want us to change it to a G or just omit it completely?
Oh, you mean like if you find the error on the test?
Yeah.
Like
'cause we
if
have
there
to-
was an error like this on the test, I might circle that low F and I might say just something like too low.
Okay, but then you said that we have to notate it correctly?
Oh, notate it
Yeah.
correctly. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, boy, that's a good point. I would just, what's the chord though? Yeah, I would probably, what I might do is I might just take both of those notes for the second violin and raise them a whole octave.
Okay.
I might do that. Some way, just to let me know that you see that there's something out of whack.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't gonna be like, it doesn't need to be official perfect scoring kind of thing. It's just for notation purposes.
Okay.
Okay, I think there's, let's see. We got that one. Oh, there's still a couple more errors. Do you see one?
The dynamic marking should be on all of them.
Good. So there should be dynamics for all the instruments in addition to the first violin. Second violin, viola, cello, double bass. How loud are they supposed to play their pitches? Don't know. Nobody told them.
And then
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
and then the viola needs to be VC2.
Okay, now this is a good point here. It's very ambiguous, right? The viola should either be marked to VC, but if it's not marked to VC, what could that be for the violas? Okay, it could be a double stop, right? So it is kind of ambiguous. I looked at those pitches and I think those could be played as a double stop on the viola. The lowest pitch there for the viola is the open C. So you just would have to finger on the next string up, you just have to finger the next pitch, and you could play both those adjacent strings at the same time. So that was another thing that I saw on the homework. A lot of people forgot to put the DIV. And when you don't put the DIV and there's multiple notes there, string players are going to assume it's maybe double stop, but if you don't want that, then you've got to be clear about that. So I think I still have two small errors.
Would you just add a crescendo to the rest of the instruments too?
Say that again.
Would you add the crescendo that's on the violin?
Okay, yeah, that goes with the dynamics, yeah, absolutely. I would probably add a crescendo, although you don't know for sure, but, yeah, you could add the crescendo. Yeah,
The violoncello is spelled wrong.
that's right. How do you spell the instrument over there on the left, above the double bass?
Oh.
Yeah, violoncello, not violoncello. Violoncello. And I think the only other thing I might probably note or mention that could be clearer is in the second violins, I think this DIV should be listed right above those notes, not on a previous beat. So that the division sign starts right on the exact beat where you have the multiple pitches. Yeah. That's probably the only other thing I would say. But I think you got all the ones that I did. You can rewrite it as you need it, but just so that we're aware that you spotted and you've located these kinds of errors, you know how to fix them.
I have a question. So for the piano, for the rest of the instruments, the dynamic marking, would we put that on like the first full measure for the rest of the instruments?
Yeah,
Since they
it's
don't play?
it's just not really clear. You don't know how the arranger or the composer, if that's exactly where he or she wanted it. Yeah, if I'm asking you to to notate this correctly, I would probably just put the P for the piano dynamics under the first note that each
Okay.
instrument plays.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's probably what I would do. Okay. Moving on. Matthew? Yay. I knew you wanted there to be some matching, so I'm gonna put some matching on it. And again, I know that's kind of small, you can't see that, but maybe you can look at your own paper. Let's go through these really quickly. Number 1, brace is another word, or it's another translation of what instrument? Viola. Viola. So number 1 should be letter I. Yeah, remember we had the foreign terms? I gave you that handout. That was like the first week. That seemed like a long time. Okay, number 2, con sordino means what? D, yeah, with mute. Number 3, sul ponticello means, I'm sorry, I can't quite hear. Do I not have all the choices on here? Look at that, they're not all on there. There they are. It's letter J, right? At or near the bridge. That's sul ponticello. Number 4, what would you suggest? Yes, letter C with the wood, number 4. Number 5, Geige is a German word to say what? Violin, yes, so that would be A. Number 6, sul G. That's right, on the G string, letter B. Number 7, arco. H, bowed. Number 8, pizzicato. E would be plucked. Number 9, vibrato would have to be letter what? F. And finally, number 10, double stop would have to be letter G. G, that's right. Transposition. Pay attention to the instructions here. Given the written part of a trumpet melody, notate the sounding pitches in the empty staff. So I need you to tell me what we're going to actually hear, actual sound. Include the correct key and meter signature. Well, we have, it looks like a trumpet in B flat. How is the actual sound related to the written note for a trumpet in B flat?
Down a major second.
Good, it's down a major second. Okay. So if the if the written score for the trumpet in B flat is in, let's say, F major, what key should the actual sound be in?
E flat.
E flat major, down a major second. Does this make sense? So you would put 3 flats in the key signature? And what would be the, say, the first 2 notes that you need to write for actual sound for the trumpet in B flat?
B flat and A flat.
B flat and A flat, that's right. That would get you started. Down a major second. Oh, if you want to take a look, I guess I got it written out here. Oops. There it is. Okay, the next one goes, as you go the other way. The next one says, given the actual sound, or the sounding pitches of a horn melody, notate the correct written pitches for the instrument. So what would we need to write for the French horn in order to hear that key and those pitches? Well, what's the interval and what direction do we go?
Down.
Okay, perfect fifth, yeah. We're actually gonna go up, right? Because we're given actual sound. So to write for the French horn, we need to go up a perfect fifth. So let's say that, well, yeah, let's just say the actual sound concert key there, let's say is E minor. What is the written key going to be for the horn? Good, B minor, up a perfect fifth. So how many sharps? 2 sharps in B minor, right? Always has been, always will be. And then let's say the first 2 notes that we need to write for the horn would be B and then A sharp, correct? Yeah. So your final answer might look something like that. That's what you would need to write in the music for the French horn in order to get the actual sound above. Am I going too fast? The next thing on your talks more about transposition, intervals and directions. It says provide the transposition information for each of the following. Indicate the interval of transposition and the direction. If the instrument is non-transposing, just write no transposition in the blank. So, the viola sounds what? No transposition, that's right. The alto sax sounds how? Good, a major 6 lower than written. We just did this one. French horn sounds how compared to written? Perfect 5th lower. No. Oh, the flute. No transposition. Good. The trumpeted D sound.
Major second up.
Yes, a major 2nd higher than written. The double bass sounds how? An octave lower than written. That's right. The English horn sounds how? Perfect 5th lower than written, just like the French horn, that's right. And finally, the tuba, no transposition. So, I would have your answers look something like that. How are we doing? Are things clicking, firing on all cylinders now? Yeah, good. All right, now the next one we won't have time to do, although I'll show you several possibilities. The next one says, in fact, let me put it up here. You will probably have something like this, not the exact piece, but something similar to this on the test. Score the following chorale measures for string orchestra on the following page. Make sure to write in the name of each instrument. Supply the correct brackets, bar lines, clash, key signature, time signature. Score the passage with an emphasis on the soprano melody, but maintain a balance among the instruments so that each line may be heard clearly. Okay, so on the next page, you're going to have to obviously put in all the brackets, the bar lines, all that stuff, all the instrument names, the clefs, the key signature, that kind of thing. What do you think it means when I say score the passage with an emphasis on the soprano melody? That's an important part.
Double Josh.
Okay, so you probably want to double the soprano melody. Give it to one instrument at original pitch, but then double it in another instrument, either an octave higher, or at the same pitch, or an octave lower, because you're even allowed to double the melody an octave lower. The melody. Okay? So, what I did is on the back, whoops, that's not, somewhere on mine, what I did is I wrote out several possibilities. And you're like, what on earth is this? These would be some very good possibilities for providing emphasis on the soprano melody. Okay, so let me see if I can try to explain to you if you can read this. So I've got all the instruments of the string orchestra listed over here on the left. What I could do is I could divide the first violins, right? Give them the soprano line as written, and then have some of them playing an octave high. And then the rest would fall into place: alto, tenor, bass, bass for violin 2, viola, cello. That would be a possibility. There's another possibility in this next column. Violin 1 and violin 2 have the soprano at the given octave. You're doubling it, but it's not any different octave, but you're giving more emphasis to it. Then I would give, in that case, I would give the violas the alto line. I would divide the cellos, right? Because some of the cellos always have to be playing the bass. You see, if you look across here, some of the cellos are always playing the bass. And do you see the double bass? Bass, 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 bass. That's all they can do. Another possibility in the third column would be to have the violins on the soprano line, but then to have the violas double the soprano line, either an octave lower, which they can reach, I checked, or in the very next column, don't have to lower them an octave at all. Have the violas and the violin ones in unison. That's possible. If you do that, though, then the cellos need to take some of the tenor and some of the bass. The next one, soprano line in the first violins. Where do I have the soprano line doubled in my list here?
The cello.
The cellos. So I have the cellos taking the soprano line an octave lower, but then of course I have some cellos for bass. And then finally over here, I've got very similar to column number 2, but this time instead of dividing the cellos, I've divided the violas, alto and tenor. So you see, there's at least 6 different good ways. Any one of those ways you decide to do and write it out would be fine. The one I wrote out up above is this one in the 5th column here, where the melody is doubled an octave lower with the cellos. You see how my cellos are divided? I got VIB. The up stems for the cellos, that is the soprano melody from violin 1. It's just down an octave. Is it okay to have it down an octave? Yes, because I've got the original soprano line at the original pitch in the first violins. And you see how the downstem line in my cello section, that's the bass. So that's doing the same thing that the double bass does. See the brackets over there, that kind of thing? Did I get through everything out here? Wow, talk about record time. Okay, now, I kind of ran out of time for this, but if you're here, if any of you have any individual questions about the project, please feel free to stick around. We still got a few minutes. I'll stick around. I'll also be in my office sometime this afternoon, even though classes are canceled. If you're around, please take advantage if you're concerned or don't know something about the project. I'd like to help you if I can. I'll try my best if you're using a notation software program that I don't know, but I'll try my best if you have questions about that. But anything you're not sure of, just I want you to take the opportunity to take your time and ask me if you need that, okay? So, any questions before we go? Remember there's a test on Wednesday? Okay, then let's go ahead and break for today.